Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 7th Annual Wild Wisconsin Winter Web Conference. I'm Jamie Machek with the Wisconsin Valley Library Service, and I am moderating the Library Leadership track. Assisting me today is Jean Anderson with the South Central Library System, and we're very glad to have you here. We have two presenters for this session. We have Erin McFarland and Paula Wilson, who are with the Maricopa County Library District. And they're going to talk about a program at their library that they created called Great Expectations. So, Erin, whenever you're ready, please begin.
Hi, thanks so much, Jamie. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to pop in right before I start with an exciting program that we're having at our library this weekend. Everyone was talking about all the great things that are happening at their libraries. We are having a Diana Gabaldon author event this weekend on Saturday, and we're super excited about that at one of our libraries. And it is a ticketed event, and all 300 tickets were reserved in under 4 minutes online. So as you can imagine, that's going to be an exciting day for us. So, but it sounds like everybody's got some good stuff going on at their libraries. And I want to say hello and thank you so much for joining us today to hear about our customer service philosophy, which we call Great Expectations. We're excited to share the details of our plan with you and also our process. Hopefully, you will leave here today with the tools you need to develop your own customer service philosophy, or you can use ours as a jumping off point. Like Jamie said, my name is Erin McFarland, and I am the Customer Experience Administrator with the Maricopa County Library District. That means that I work with a team that oversees large projects and initiatives. That includes our work around Great Expectations. And I'm here today with Paula Wilson. Paula is the Staff Development Manager with MCLD, and she is currently leading the training for Great Expectations. She also works on the ongoing efforts to build Great Expectations into the culture of MCLD. All right, let's get started. So, we have created a two-sided handout for our presentation that highlights our timeline and key steps in our process on one side, and the 8 statements and 3 to 5 observable, trainable, and coachable behaviors for each statement on the other. We're going to be referring to this handout throughout the presentation. We want to be sure that everyone has access to a copy. So there's a web address on this slide. And if you wanted to pop over there, you could go and download a copy of that. You can do it now, or you can wait until after the presentation is finished. You can see that we have highlighted key steps in our process in gray, steps that involve staff contributions and build staff engagement, and with an asterisk. And here is side 2, a summary of the statements and behaviors that comprise our philosophy. We have divided our presentation into 3 parts with time for questions and answers at the end. I'll be sharing the development process, followed by the implementation plan and our ongoing efforts. And in between, Paula will share Great Expectations in more detail with you. At the end, both Paula and I welcome your questions. We want to start with a quick thought activity. What is good customer service? Think about a business you use that stands out in your mind for good customer service.
Okay, so think about the customer service, and if you have any ideas, please type those in the question box, and we would love to share them.
Yeah.
I would say for me, Erin, when I think of good customer service, I think of just something as simple as saying hi to somebody. That basic politeness. So we're seeing a couple things come in our screen. We're seeing engaging conversations. Heather says Disney World. That's true.
Disney World.
They're known for that. Taking the time to listen, feeling welcome, an open, friendly interaction. Jeremy says providing that little bit of extra. Cassie says reminders and follow-ups. And then Allison says having something that feels personalized. And finally, Barbara says, we want to create an experience that encourages a return visit.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jamie, for reading those. Those are all great, and I'm sure many of you thought about being friendly, smiling, making eye contact, and giving customers what they need and solving their problems. Those are all elements of great customer service. But Great Expectations is about more than that. It's about the hundreds of touch points that create a memorable library experience. It's for brand new staff and long tenured staff, for our customers, and for our coworkers. It's about a skill set that we can develop, practice, and improve every day. So why does customer service matter? Libraries are dependent on people choosing us to use their services, right? There are other places where people can go to be surrounded by books, have access to free Wi-Fi, and meet up with friends. And we all know about the online sites where people can go to find information. People frequent places that provide positive, memorable experiences, and our judgment about organizations is often based on the totality of the experience. We can provide the most memorable program and then wipe out a customer's good experience with an unhelpful staff member at the service desk on the way out. So the customer experience is key. Libraries can stand out from our competition by leveraging exceptional customer service, along with our free resources and excellent programs, to become the preferred physical and virtual destination of our communities. All right, so if we all agree that excellent customer service is what we're striving for, let's do another quick thought exercise. How do you define excellent customer service? Do you have a definition in mind? So we talked about that a little bit, but I also want to then pose this question to you. Is your definition the same as your library's definition? All right.
That's a great question.
So, yeah. Okay, so our journey to this philosophy began with visits to individual libraries. So as I said, I am an administrator here, and we had another administrator. We have our branch operations administrator. All of us go out and visit our branches. We have 17 branches in our district. And as we worked with staff and managers at our many different locations, we noticed that staff had very different approaches to customer service. Many of our managers asked for help coaching staff about improving their customer service skills. We saw that staff had a lot of different definitions. Some did whatever the customer wanted, and others followed policy without exception. We wouldn't define excellent customer service either way. It was clear that if we didn't provide an organizational definition, staff would make up their own. Overall, our customer service is rated highly, but we're always trying to strive for better. To get better, it was essential that we all had the same playbook. We required a definition of excellent customer service, and it was vital that we develop the tools and training needed by staff and supervisors to deliver that service. So we asked ourselves, what do we want to achieve? And we crafted a goal. We will provide Maricopa County Library District internal and external customers with an exceptional, personalized, and consistent service experience. We committed to several principles for our development process. So firstly, internal customer service would be included. It was critical that all of our library departments see themselves in this model. It couldn't just be for library branch staff. So it included our human resources department, our finance department, our collection management department that was based in admin. Everybody had to be included. And it had to work in all of our libraries. We have small rural libraries, and we have very large suburban libraries. We have a couple of libraries in adult retirement communities, and we also have growing municipalities with lots of young families. We wanted to make sure we hit every one of those. And finally, whatever we created had to be vetted by staff and incorporate their ideas and experiences. So think about where you work. How many of you have a customer service model for your organization? How many don't have one, or you're not aware that you have one? And then some of you might be working on one, and that's why you came to this webinar today. We prepared this presentation with a couple of approaches in mind, depending on what you need. These approaches are reflected on that handout. So the first approach is to use our process to develop your own model, modifying as necessary. As I pointed out earlier, the key steps in our process are highlighted in gray. The second approach is to use our statements and behaviors and work on a plan to create staff buy-in. I can't stress enough the importance of having your staff involved in the creation process. Those steps are marked with an asterisk on the handout. So let's jump in and cover the first 5 steps of our process. Like any good librarian, we started with research. So we wanted to see what we already knew about customer service, and we gathered our latest customer service information. We looked for trends and identified organizations known for exceptional customer service. So during one of those thought exercises, I heard Jamie say Disney World. Disney is recognized for their excellent customer service. We actually had a staff member attend one of their training sessions, their institute, to learn more about what they did with their customer service and why it was rated so highly. So we took some time to really dig in and look at the research and best practices in the field that would help guide what we wanted to do with our libraries. Next, we closely examined our department mission, vision, and values, and the customer service competency indicators provided by our county. So those indicators are based on our performance management or evaluation tool. So we looked at what was already there to see what we could build on. We pored over those documents and learned that our current values and competencies define what our deliverables are. What do we want people to walk away with? But in our process, we wanted to develop tools that focus on how we create an excellent customer service experience. So we had a basic idea of what should be included in our model. Now it was time to talk to our staff. So we scheduled conversations with our staff. We went to our branches and met with them at our administrative offices. In all, we talked to 99 people in person and a couple of more via online contributions. So to give you some context there, we have about 250 staff members, give or take, at any one time. So we talked to about 100 of them as we went through this process. Each of the conversations was documented, and the thoughts and ideas expressed by staff were compared against our basic outline because we wanted to be sure that we didn't miss any major components. We asked everyone the same 4 questions about their experiences as a customer. We heard some very funny anecdotes, and those stories and experiences that our staff shared were incorporated into the training we did later. We wanted to make sure that it was relevant to them and tied back to their experiences. So what did we do next? We assembled a focus group. So as we engaged with staff through those conversations, it became clear that a small, highly interested group of individuals wanted to contribute more to this process, and they had experience, passion, and a lot of great editing suggestions to offer. So as we worked with this group to shape our customer service model, it became apparent that we weren't creating a model, a standard for imitation, but we were developing a philosophy, a system of principles for guidance. So what started out as a model became our customer service philosophy. It would provide guidelines that would allow our staff to develop their own genuine style of customer service. As you all might recognize from your libraries, you have some very outgoing staff members that are super smiley and have a lot of energy. I would be considered one of those. I always say I have Muppet arms that go waving when I get excited, but not everybody is like me, and I recognize that. So we wanted to create something that each staff member could take personally and then modify to meet what their personality was. And that would form the structure for the creation of the tools that our supervisors could use to assist their staff with their customer service skills. So to make it memorable, we structured the content around the letters of our county, Maricopa, M-A-R-I-C-O-P-A. A focus group member suggested the name Great Expectations, and our graphic artist gave Great Expectations a personality using some inventive puns and charming illustrations. We'll talk more about that later. Before we get there, Paula is going to introduce you to what the actual behaviors are for Great Expectations. So I'm gonna pass this headset over to Paula, and so we'll just take 1 second to transfer.
Thank you. Thanks, Erin, and hello, everybody. I'm going to trust that Jamie is going to let me know if you can't hear me, but so I'm going to start with, as Erin mentioned, Great Expectations consists of these 8 statements, and for each statement, 3 to 5 observable, trainable, and coachable behaviors. Since all staff was trained about 2 years ago, I continue to give a monthly class, which is about 3 hours in duration. I'm in the process of transitioning this 3-hour class to an online one. So today I'm going to provide you with a snapshot of each statement, and I've selected 2 behaviors to share with you and examples of each. At the beginning of the class, there are 2 points I touch upon. First, I tell the class, you're going to find the behaviors second nature, Customer Service 101. You'll find most everything we discussed today has been said before. Now, the challenge is twofold. First, applying these behaviors in practice. They sound easy, but in public service, we know there's a great deal of unpredictability. And second, applying it consistently. You and I are going to provide excellent customer service, but how consistent are we going to be providing it as an organization? The second point I tell them is that Great Expectations is aspirational because customers' needs change and the tools we use to meet those needs change. We say that is aspirational. You're really never quite done with it. You can work on this your entire career. So I challenge them to find something here that they can work on to improve. Now, by starting with these 2 points, it helps people, especially those who are new to libraries, and conversely, those who have been in libraries a long time, find context in the philosophy. So let's get started. Our first statement is to make everyone feel welcome. This by far is the one most employees easily grasp because it is most often how they define good customer service. It also sets the tone for the entire customer journey, so it's very important. What behavior do we need to adopt in order to make everyone feel welcome? Well, I've selected 2 behaviors to share with you today. The first is to project a friendly and approachable demeanor. And how do we do that? One way is with positive body language and nonverbal cues, because we want our customers to know we are available to help them. So physically, what does that look like? We're smiling, we're making eye contact, we're using appropriate facial expressions, good posture, open body stance. Physical actions might include a slight leaning in to show the customer you're interested in what they have to say. When the customer is too far away, we might acknowledge them verbally or waving or nodding our heads. When at the computer, periodically look up and scan the area in front of you. Now, as simple as these behaviors are, what happens when we don't do them? Let's say you're at the customer service desk, you're working on a weeding project with a stack of material so high the customers can barely see you. What message are you sending to the customer? Well, you're saying that you're probably a little too busy to help them right now, and that's certainly not the message we want to send. So a clean, clutter-free desk says, I'm ready for the next customer. Does this apply to our internal customers? And I ask this question throughout the training. And the answer is absolutely. It's important that our customer service philosophy is applied internally because what we have learned is that you cannot have good external customer service without good internal customer service. The next behavior is to treat all customers fairly. So how do we do that? Well, we know libraries are for everyone, and we strive for collections, displays, policies, and events that are not only reflective of our communities, but also include the world around us, keeping equity, diversity, inclusion at the forefront. One of the examples we use in training is to provide each customer with the same enthusiasm as the next. We make sure that we greet a new customer with the same excitement as a regular customer. Again, because Great Expectations is not scripted, we want staff to be genuine and sincere in their words and actions. We just want them to be consistent from one customer to the next. So making everyone feel welcome is easy for staff to grasp in the classroom. And I challenge staff to ask themselves, are you making everyone feel welcome? And how do you do this? Everyone, without bias or prejudice or assumptions that you may have based on appearances, speech, or abilities, etc. Everyone should receive the same exceptional level of service. Our next expectation is to anticipate customer needs. When anticipating the customer needs, you're helping to create a seamless experience for them by removing as many barriers to service as possible. We want them to leave with what they came for, and we want it to be easy for them. For example, a library clerk who's filling the printer with copy paper, replenishing scratch paper and pencils near the catalog stations before it runs out. Think through the customer journey and anticipate what they might need next. So what behaviors do we need to adopt in order to anticipate customer needs? The first one is to reduce customer efforts whenever possible. And how do we do that? We do it by anticipating questions that customers may have and going over things in advance instead of waiting for the questions to come. For example, and we talk about this in the classroom, instead of only doing what the customer asks them when working in the ILS, perform a quick account review to see if their card is close to renewal. Click through all the screens to see if there are any fines or holds or upcoming due dates, expirations, or anything else to inform the customer about so they don't have to come back. Confirm they're getting notices and that their email preferences are all up to date. The next behavior is to proactively look for unique customer service opportunities by training staff to look for visual cues from our customers. By looking for issues or challenges we anticipate the customer needs and can hopefully prevent the need for service recovery. For example, a person returning 50 books at the self-checkout creates a long line, and that creates a backlog. So be prepared to pull the next customer out of line to check their books out at your desk. If you have a visual from your desk to the self-checkout, great, but if not, it's something staff should be anticipating throughout the day. And I do want to mention here that all of these examples came from staff, and I would recommend that if you choose to create your customer service philosophy, that you do ask your employees for specific examples. Anticipating customer needs is easy if we can walk through the customer journey and identify the positive and painful touch points and ask ourselves, what works and what doesn't, and how do we make it easier for the customer? If it's not a seamless experience, what happens? Well, at some point, usually the customer will look up and around, and we need to be observant of that. Inside the library, the best we can do is reach them before they abandon their journey. Online, we may not be so lucky. So in order to anticipate the customer's needs, always ask yourself, what is next in the logical step in this customer's journey? Think of it like you're paving the way or clearing a path for the customer. Our next expectation is to radiate confidence. Confidence is important because it helps to earn the customer's trust. Our follow-up meetings after the initial training helped us discover that some training gaps existed, but in most cases we found that staff were always more knowledgeable than they were giving themselves credit for. The key to radiating confidence, as we discussed in training, is not that you have all the answers, but that you have the ability to find the answers. So how does one radiate confidence? Well, the first behavior we discussed is to confidently share knowledge and expertise. And we do that every day in a variety of ways. We discuss in training the customer handoff. When you know your coworker is probably more capable of answering the question and you enlist their help. So for example, a customer approaches your coworker and asks about downloading the Overdrive app to the Android phone. You just helped a customer do that very thing earlier in the day, but now you're watching your coworker fumble through a response. Now, if you can jump in and offer assistance to your coworker, great. In class, we discussed how to use professional judgment about when and how to give help, how to do it politely, and so it's well received by both your coworker and the customer. Our next behavior is to keep up to date on knowledge of tools and product services and collection. So when we discovered that radiating confidence was a challenge, staff across the board identified this behavior as one they needed help with. Our survey told us that they did not feel knowledgeable with our digital services and collections. Now, this could be for a variety of reasons, including just the sheer amount of products that we have, ever-changing content, and new interfaces. And it was clear that staff needed more training here. So in terms of training, we want staff to know what's going on. We want them to know what new items have been added to the collection, what events are happening today and the rest of the week. And ideally, staff should start each shift by checking email and their events calendar. That way, when the information need presents itself, staff knows the answer. So I want you to think about the last time you experienced great customer service. Think about why it was so incredible. It could have been maybe at a restaurant where staff took the time to explain today's specials in detail. Maybe it was at the dentist where all of your questions were answered or procedures were discussed in detail. Now you can see that the knowledgeable, confident staff can make a big difference in how the customer perceives the service. The bottom line is that when staff are knowledgeable about their service about their services, customer satisfaction increases. Our next expectation is to inspire curiosity. One of our fundamental beliefs here at MCLD is our role in discovery and inspiring curiosity in our customers. We want to introduce customers to their next favorite thing. And there's actually science behind the statement, inspiring curiosity. Humans are information seekers, and our brains are constantly trying to find things out and love the challenge of learning something new. So what behaviors do we need to have in order to do this? The first one is to positively suggest resources the customer may not be familiar with. So in doing this, staff must keep a positive tone and remember that their response is the customer's first impression when suggesting new resources. So if you act like ebooks are a pain, the customer is going to walk away thinking, gosh, even the library staff doesn't like them, so why should I? And that's certainly not the outcome we would like. So we discussed this in training. If you had a bad experience with the technology, it doesn't mean the customer will. So this is a great place to challenge yourself. If you're personally not a fan of a certain format, start by learning it, become proficient, and share it. When we excite our customers about new options, we find that this excitement makes it easier for customers to access and adopt these new formats. So for example, in most cases, the adoption of new formats is going to start with you as a staff member. A customer comes in looking for books on Rosa Parks. They're all checked out. But you can still get the customer what they need by suggesting Gail's virtual collection, reading biographies, or biographies in context. The next behavior in order to inspire curiosity is to empower the customer with knowledge. And how do we do that? Well, we teach customers so they can be self-sufficient. We don't want to just do something for them without explanation. We want to walk them through what we're doing so they can learn. Show them where to find the information that they need instead of simply just telling them. So for example, if a customer asks about other authors who write like James Patterson, and you happen to know this, don't just rattle off the names of the read-alikes. While it's great you know the answer, take the opportunity to show your customer how they can find the answers themselves. Perhaps you can show them Novelist and how they can access it and how to search it. Lastly, it's important we end each session with, hey, look, if you didn't get it the first time, don't worry about it. I'm going to help you every single time you come in. Our next expectation is to creatively solve problems. So as they say, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when challenges arise. Customers care just as much, if not more, about how they are treated after a service failure as they do about the outcome itself. And with any customer service failure, we want our employees to see the person and not just the issue. So what behaviors do we need to adopt in order for staff to creatively solve problems? The first one is to pursue the reconciliation of the relationship and not just the resolution of an issue. So for example, we try to turn a potential negative situation into a win by looking for an offsetting consideration for that disappointment. As an example, you have a customer who had late fees totaling $16 on DVDs she lost and then found. She states her email changed and she never updated her account information. Now you decide to make an exception to lessen the fees and split the late fine. So you tell her that $8 is owed on her account. She can pay part or all of that during her next visit. You point out that her card is in good standing because it is under the $10 threshold for locked accounts. So that offsetting consideration is that she can still use the computer and check out materials today. And that's the part we want staff to emphasize. We want them to look for the positive in any customer service challenge. The next behavior is to be flexible yet consistent in your approach to resolving problems. So how do we do that? Well, one of the mnemonic tools we suggest staff use in any tough customer service interaction comes from Disney, which is the HEAT method, H-E-A-T. When there's a customer service failure or the customer's upset from no fault of ours, if it's not handled properly, the situation can escalate rather quickly. And without a strategy, we tend to want to solve the problem and fix it fast to head off an escalating situation. Before we know it, we're fixated again on the problem and not the person. The HEAT method is a strategy, it's a tool for staff to rely on in those heated moments. In addition to that, staff's reaction to an angry customer might put them at a disadvantage if they don't have a method in place or a strategy or a technique that they feel comfortable with. Now, this one is very easy to remember, and we often present it to employees, and they can adjust it to their own personalities. So first is that we hear them out. Let's listen to our customers and let them continue to talk and hear them out. We empathize. How would we feel if we were in their position? We apologize to them. I'm sorry that happened. And we thank them for the time, their patience, while we get to the solution. So we look at customer service in terms of a checking account, which every moment of good service is money going into that account. The more in the account, the less impact a negative moment has. So this is important for public libraries because we want customers for life. Being able to recover from a service failure and maintaining that relationship is going to help us accomplish that. The next expectation is to own the moment. Service is experienced in a multitude of small moments over time. So when customers are not interacting with us, staff, they're interacting with our brand, our website, a brochure. They're navigating the parking lot and street signage. They're working through our telephone system, either renewing items or calling to find out the hours. During training, the concept of owning the moment is easily demonstrated to staff when we think about the effects of a page shelving a book incorrectly. In order to further illustrate this concept, we discuss the customer's journey through the library as they interact with hundreds of touch points before and after we serve them. With the countless ways customers use our libraries, there can be thousands of iterations of a customer journey. So I want you to think back to the last customer you helped and try to imagine their customer journey. What do you imagine they did immediately before and after you assisted them? Did they come in to pick up materials they placed on hold? Do you think their customer journey probably started on the website, or maybe they had to come in to get their PIN reset? When you realize the customer journey does not start and stop with your moment, this reveals the ongoing challenge in providing exceptional customer service. Sure, I did my part, we think, but it really takes all of us in all of our roles exhibiting all of these behaviors consistently over time. So which behaviors do we need in place to make sure this happens? We want to complete every task with the customer's experience in mind. We begin with the end user. We imagine how the customer will ultimately experience the effects of what we're doing. So for example, Tara in Central Collection Management, she gets a request for season 3 of House of Cards. She goes back through and she refreshes all of the seasons so other customers will have access to the entire series. Tara works remotely from home and never interacts directly with the public, but what she does has a direct impact on whether customers get what they came for. The next behavior is to take each opportunity to make a positive experience. We want staff focused on the experience versus the task and not to let repetition get in the way. So for example, it's 3:30 p.m. and you're just about to create a new card for a customer. This marks the 15th card you created today. So think about this. Your 15th card may be their first. So ask yourself, while you're processing that card, how are you making it a positive experience for the customer? Are you processing card replacements differently than new cards? When Dad brings his 7-year-old son to the desk letting you know it's his first card, of course we want to speak to the child and ask him what he likes to read about and make it a very special event for him. And we want our staff to turn their transactions into interactions. And this can be done very easily just by being friendly, conversational, and seeking out ways to make the customer's experience more enjoyable. Our next expectation is to personalize the experience. This is where public libraries can really differentiate themselves and evoke that emotional response in customers that make them fiercely loyal to their libraries. We treat each customer like a VIP, a very individual person. And when customers feel like an individual, they're more likely to perceive their experience as unique and special. So which behaviors do we have to have in place to personalize the experience? The first one is to gauge the customer reactions and respond accordingly. The best way to do this is to use cues to see which customers need or want more attention and which ones are self-sufficient. So for example, we can tell when a customer knows what they need when they walk straight over to the shelf to pick up a hold and they go right to self-checkout. Then there's the ones that need assistance. They might be hesitant to walk in any direction. They're looking for visual cues and signage to guide them, or maybe somebody to ask. You also have the customers who require some startup assistance at the computers, and it's important to continue to be visible to them and available when they need you to return for follow-up questions. The next behavior is to recognize repeat customers with friendly acknowledgement. For example, when you see a repeat customer, we want staff to use their names if they feel comfortable doing so. We want them to suggest new materials if you know their interests, or follow up on something that you helped them with last time. In the example we used when we discussed anticipating customer needs, we talked about doing a quick customer account review. So now let's personalize it. While in the customer's account and you're reviewing the items they have checked out, if you notice something that you can comment on, like a specific title you've read or a movie that you've watched and you feel comfortable doing so, remember, you have to gauge the customer's reaction and use your professional judgment. Ask them something about it. We want staff to personalize the experience for customers and also at the same time keep the level of service consistent and not hold up other customers with conversations. Remember, you can always circle back to a customer at a later time. Okay, so the next expectation and the last one is to act with integrity. Libraries are known for having reliable, accurate information, and by acting with integrity, we uphold that reputation. We also have access to private information and responsibility to protect it. Library staff are made aware of this through our library's privacy policy. And this may be new to staff who have not worked in libraries before. So first, we want to use appropriate resources to give accurate information. By being aware of reliable resources, knowing our digital collection well, and sharing that with customers. And if we're using information on the free web, we need to know the source. For example, a customer comments that they need to buy a new set of tires or replace a washing machine. That's an excellent opportunity for staff to suggest using consumer reports online and stepping through that website with the customer and maybe emailing them a few relevant articles. The next behavior is to respect the privacy of customers as well as coworkers. For example, we want to follow proper identification procedures, but we also want to consider the situation too. For instance, one of our regulars, Mr. Peters, he forgets his wallet in his car. You make an exception because you know him and let him know that if he doesn't have a card, we would need to see his ID, but that you'll check his items out today if he can confirm some information. We also need to be discreet when assisting customers with requests, especially when of a sensitive nature. You can only do this when you're present, you're in the moment, and you're gauging that customer's reaction. For instance, if they lower their voice to a whisper and they present you with a note because they don't want to read it out loud, the customer may be embarrassed about asking for materials, maybe about a medical condition. So walk them to the shelf so you can move away from other people in line and speak with them quietly. That way you can confirm that they have found what they needed. They don't have to explain what they need to another staff member. Again, circle back with them or let the customer know where you'll be should they have any further questions. So that concludes the snapshot of the customer service philosophy. And remember, good customer service doesn't just happen, it's a result of an intentional efforts over a period of time. So I want to thank you very much for your attention. And now I'm going to turn this back over to Erin.
All right, thank you, Paula. I'm going to put my headset on. Okay, thanks so much, Paula. Now that everybody has had an introduction to Great Expectations, I'd like to share what our implementation process was like and the ongoing efforts, the things that we're still doing to make sure that Great Expectations stays in the front of everyone's mind. So the creation process was complete and we were ready to share Great Expectations with the whole organization. The timing was perfect for us to give a sneak peek at our all-day staff training. We knew that the rollout was coming, so we planned for the theme of the training day to be customer service. We wanted to help prepare staff for the upcoming training and focus on customer service. If you're following along on the handout, we're about halfway down. So then we focused on meeting with every single staff member for in-person training. Our focus group attended the first session of the training, and their feedback was used to refine the presentation. Supervisors were next so they could support their staff as they attended, and general sessions for all staff members followed. All 250 staff in groups of 20 to 25 attended one of the 21 sessions that occurred over a 3-week period. Training consisted of a definition and discussion of each statement and each behavior with examples, stories, or role-playing. Here's where some of our staff's great customer experience stories were used. We also had many examples from our library work and situations from all of our departments, because when I talked about all 250 staff, that includes our internal customer service providers, the people who don't work frontline with our customers in the branches, and so we needed to make sure that their experiences were also reflected in the training. So lastly, we embraced the cheese. So we recognized that some of the stuff that we are teaching could come off as cheesy to staff, so we embraced that. Can you tell from these graphics? We certainly hadn't adopted any phrases or expressions required for staff to say, but we were using Maricopa as a framework for the statements. We recognized that there would be an element of awkwardness when staff tried to apply something new, and we knew that the awkwardness would diminish with practice. Our focus group had experience adopting new customer service philosophies from other organizations, and they confirmed that the shared training experience would build engagement with our new philosophy. We found that the training format worked great with inexperienced staff. At the conclusion of each training session, we provided a lanyard and key card with the statements on one side and a fun pun graphic on the other as a reminder tool for staff. We knew that the initial training would not be enough to ingrain these new expectations for customer service, because creating any new habit takes concerted effort and practice. So we went on the road again in order to make sure that what we were talking about in the training was continued to be implemented in our branches. We set up follow-ups at department staff meetings. In preparation for our visits, we asked managers to share successes and struggles. We used the manager feedback to identify helpful training exercises and to guide discussion at the meetings. One of the most important things we discovered was that we were developing a shared vocabulary. Now we could better understand each other when we reviewed challenging customer encounters and tried to duplicate successes. We were speaking the same language. We gave each meeting attendee a button featuring one of our graphics. We were trying to keep great expectations front and center, to lean on the cheese and the shared experience. We also introduced role model awards. These were on-the-spot recognition from supervisors to staff who were seen demonstrating one of the behaviors. They encouraged observation and continued discussion of the customer service encounters, both challenging and successful. They are means to praise and reward staff, and these were meant to be for things that happened that were over and above what we would expect for good customer service. So the staff that received them got certificates, and they came with a casual day sticker. Our staff loved the chance to wear jeans. So what are we doing now? How are we continuing to make sure that great expectation stays front and center? So our commitment is ongoing. As I stated before, it takes practice to make any new behaviors a habit. We have several strategies for continuing to drive the cultural change necessary for great expectations to become second nature to staff. So first of all, when we're recruiting new staff members, we added our great expectations philosophy to the job descriptions, and the philosophy is used to guide recruitments. So it stays right up there for our hiring managers. Our staff training is ongoing. As Paula mentioned, adjustments have been made to the training based on audience, group size, and our new staff's knowledge of libraries. We are currently working to develop an online training module that will be housed in our learning management system. This will ensure consistency of training and accountability for all staff. Maricopa County is the size of Connecticut, and we're pretty far spread out with our libraries, so sometimes it can be difficult for new staff members to travel to attend an in-person training. So to that end, we're looking for different ways to train staff, and being online will be one of those. Paula also created something we call Gratitudes. It's an additional way that managers can provide positive feedback to staff in the moment. Our role model awards are meant to be a big deal. Those are for staff who go above and beyond the call of duty to provide excellent customer service. Sometimes, though, it's nice to reward staff just for exhibiting the behaviors we've identified. Every supervisor now has Post-it notes, which you can see demonstrated on the screen, that they can use on a regular basis to provide that immediate feedback. We're also creating supervisor tools. We know that supervisor support is the key to making this work. Paula is developing exercises to help supervisors review interactions with staff and encouraging them to discuss service failures, to walk through different strategies for addressing similar situations in the future. We also want to encourage the celebration of customer service successes and help staff to dissect these interactions so they can be replicated. So communication is important too. We communicate with staff via email and our staff newsletter to keep great expectations front and center. Paula currently highlights a different statement each month, as well as recognizing staff who have received role model awards. All of our staff newsletters have one page dedicated to great expectations. All right, so we're getting ready to wrap up the presentation part of our of the webinar today, but make sure to stick around because we'll be able to answer questions then at the end. So it's time to wrap this up. We are committed to and excited about great expectations because we believe that our customer service expectations for staff will result in a better working relationship between staff and better customer experience for our library customers. Like all of you, we believe in the value of libraries and we want the public to choose us. We want libraries to be the place where residents gather with friends, use Wi-Fi, find information, attend programs, and use our services. An excellent customer service experience will make it easy for people to choose libraries and easy for us to demonstrate our value to the community. We have shared our customer service philosophy with you today and the process we use to create it. As with most things at MCLD, Great Expectations will continue to evolve. We will continue to add resources and tools that aid staff and support supervisors. So I encourage you to check back with us as you work on developing your own customer service philosophy. We'd love to hear what is working for you. One of the many great things about librarians is their willingness to share good ideas and best practices. I would also encourage you to fill out a program evaluation, or we welcome your feedback on this session. So thank you so much for having us today, and we wish you all every success in your customer service endeavor. All right, so I am here to answer, and Paula is here as well, to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you so much, Erin and Paula. We do have some time to take some questions, and a few have already come in, and we will get right to those. If you do have a question for Erin and Paula, please go ahead and type that into the question box, and we will get to that. This one came in from Alicia, and she asked, how has your creation of a customer service model impacted your hiring process for customer service positions?
So she asked, and I'm going to repeat this for Paula, well, how does the adoption of this customer service model change the hiring service or the hiring process for our customer service positions? Well, like I said in one of the last slides, we have added that to our job descriptions. And we do have specific questions that are provided to our hiring managers that can be used based on Great Expectations. So we look at the behaviors and think, if this is our goal, is to have someone that can implement these behaviors in this position, what questions can we ask that would show us whether or not this person has those kinds of traits themselves? So, and just coming from, well, and I also wanted to add, because I am a hiring manager and I also work with the team that develops our evaluations for all staff, we actually just changed as a county the way that we are evaluating staff, but we have competencies that are based on customer service, and those were created for all county staff and is not specific to Great Expectations, but Paula has gone through and tied what those different competencies can be to Great Expectations. So we're able to show our hiring managers and our supervisors, here's how you can evaluate your staff on Great Expectations. And we also have the ability to create development goals. So if we have a person who is struggling with customer service, we can create a goal for their personal evaluation form that helps them learn and directs them towards guidance on how to improve with customer service. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, great. Another question. Heather says, in your research, did you ever find that the golden rule versus the platinum rule affects how customer service models are executed?
So she asked about the golden rule versus the platinum rule and how that affects how customer service models are created. Now, I have to preface the answer that I'm going to give, which is probably not going to be satisfactory, with the fact that Paula and I have moved into these roles since this process was initiated. So I was here in the district when we were going through the process. I was not facilitating the process when Great Expectations was initiated. And Paula has joined us after the initiation of the process, but has been essential in creating the training that's involved because she moved into that training position. So I can't say that any of the research that I've seen has shown a difference with that. I could, for sure, if you wanted to email me, which my email is up on the screen, I can check back with the person that did most of the research on this project and hopefully be able to provide an answer that's more satisfactory than that. But I can say that I don't have an answer in my experience for that.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, can you speak a little bit about how you empower staff to make those policy exceptions in the moment to create a positive customer experience?
Sure. So how do we empower staff to make those professional judgments in the moment and kind of own that moment? And a lot of that is conversations with supervisors and staff. So, if a staff member, we empower staff members and we tell them ahead of time, yes, you are able to make that decision. And as I think most of you, if you are a supervisor or even you have coworkers, you know that sometimes that can be a nerve-wracking decision for staff to make. Will I get in trouble if I bend a rule here in the hopes of providing better customer service? So I think what we then do is train our supervisors. So how do you have that conversation with staff? If that staff member used their professional judgment and it maybe wasn't something that you would have expected them to do or hoped that they wouldn't have done, how do you work with that staff member to explain that in a way that makes it not uncomfortable or doesn't seem like they're quote unquote in trouble? Because that's what we want to do with this, is to open the conversation between our customer service staff and our supervisors so that they can talk about why that decision was made and then what resulted from that decision, and possibly if that decision could have been made differently, what would have happened and what would that expectation have been. But we also make sure that we train our supervisors that, as staff are working through this, it's important to recognize that those decisions can be nerve-wracking, and we want to make staff as comfortable as possible. So I think that really the empowerment came through conversations with supervisors and staff, and then conversations as well with our administrative staff and the supervisors about what our expectations are. And so the communication through the process has been huge for all of us.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, and then Paula does want to add to that, so hold on one second.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that in terms of when actually giving the training, this is something that comes up a lot, and so that when we discuss it, and all of these are new employees that I'm training, which they may or may not have library experience, but we talk about using your professional judgment, conferring with a coworker, discussing it with a supervisor, but if you have to break policy, document it, and then follow up with your supervisor, and then pick up from where Erin had mentioned that these are through lots of conversations, and that I stress that their professional judgment will grow over time. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and we'll keep you on for the next question here. Paula, you might be able to address this one as well. So based on this customer service model, what do you do in the immediate aftermath of a negative customer service interaction?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to repeat that back is what do we do after a negative customer service interaction? And I'm going to answer it from a training perspective, and I'm going to ask Erin to follow up from a manager's perspective. But from a training perspective, when we talk about kind of dissecting it, what happened, what we should have done, what we could have done, and trying to look at the great expectations and the behaviors. And so we want to get employees discussing this with their supervisors and deciding whether or not their actions were the right ones. So I'm going to hand this over to Erin for just a moment so she can kind of address it from a managerial point of view.
Yeah, so thanks, Paula. I think I will circle right back to communication. A lot of it is the manager feeling comfortable talking to that staff member. So we do a lot of training with our managers on having those tougher conversations because, it can be hard, especially right after a negative customer service experience, when the staff member oftentimes feels shaken up or upset, because if it did turn negative and a customer was upset, that can be upsetting for the customer service member as well. So maybe giving that staff member some time to kind of calm down a little bit and think about it, and then having that conversation and talk about just de-escalating any situation and how we can stay calm. We do have a way to document negative customer service interactions, just to keep an eye, because as you all know, because you work in public libraries, anybody can come into a public library, and sometimes, things can go south pretty quickly. We just want to document if there has been a consistent struggle with a customer coming into the library. We have a way to document that. But I think the big thing is the original training, and then again, that conversation with the staff member about what happened and how it could have been done differently. And then going back to solving the problem, creatively solving problems, and looking at how you can, kind of repair that relationship with the customer the next time they come in, and just address it differently next time.
Great. We are almost out of time. I do want to mention a comment that came through from Clara, who says this was so great, and I've come away with a lot of ideas. I can't wait to put this to what I've learned to work. Sometimes you feel like you know these things, but you can't relay what you know to your staff, and this presentation has made that easier. That's a great comment. Thanks for sharing that, Clara. And then Beth asked, Erin, is this online training that you're doing at MCLD, is it available to share with other libraries currently?
It is not currently. We have just started. We've gone through the process of getting started with that. Paula designs all of our online training, and she is just one person, although sometimes it seems like more than that. So that process has just kicked off with our online training, and we actually, we talked a little bit with making everyone feel welcome, about how libraries are open to everyone, and it's important for us to train our staff on equity and diversity and inclusion. So we partnered with or contracted with an outside group that are experts on those issues as they relate to libraries, and so have gotten a lot of great content on microaggressions and implicit bias that is specific to how that might work in libraries, and we're right now incorporating that into our making everyone feel welcome aspect of that training. So it isn't something that we've discussed yet, but again, my contact and Paula's contact information are available online. So if you'd be interested in looking at that training after it's completed, do shoot us an email and we can have a conversation about that.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Erin and Paula, for an excellent presentation. We have one more session coming up in the leadership track, and it's our last session for today. Judy Pinger will be talking about silos no more, and that will be coming up at 2:30. So we hope to see you at that session. If not, we hope you have a great rest of your day, and so long.